Next up from Deaf Crocodile is their Tales of Soviet Animation Volume 2. I really enjoyed the first one, which was all kind of science fiction based animation, and there was a kind of mix of films on here. This time we have 3 films kind of based within fairy tale fantasy world that are all directed by Lev Atamanov, a filmmaker I haven't heard of, but to get 3 films over the period of 9 years, it's kind of interesting to see the similar thematics and how the designs change throughout it. Now, I think this is really fun sets because you get to discover, one, great animation, 2, variations of stories that may be familiar but told from a different perspective, which I am always personally curious about. These films feel quite emotional. They're somewhere between folklore and moral fable. The animations aren't rushed, they take their time. There's some wonderful ingenuity there. You sit back, you soak it in, and you can, you reward the attention with some beautiful animation and some depth of feeling, which I think is great.
Подивись, Настенька, на царство подводное, на каменья самоцветные, на жемчуга бесценные.
First up on this set, and I watched these out of kind of order, just what I was feeling at the time, and I started off with the Scarlet Flower. Now, the Scarlet Flower is basically Beauty and the Beast. It's a classic fairy tale. It's one that we've all seen before, but Atomov leads into a kind of different telling of this one. I mean, I knew from reading the back of the box when I got the set that it was Beauty and the Beast, but I forgot it watching it. It wasn't until we get a little way through the film that you really discover it. It's about a ship captain who has these 3 daughters. He's going to get them gifts on his adventures, and when he hunts for a flower, he ends up in the debt of a beast who demands one of his daughters in return for plucking the scarlet flower of this one.
Посмел ты сорвать мой любимый заветный цветок, утеху всей жизни моей.
It's one of those tales that puts its own spin on the folktale, on the story. Is visually really stylish. For the adventure sequences at sea are wonderful. When we get to the land where the beast lives, it's ever changing, it's inventive, it's really colourful and curious of what's going on. The backgrounds, which are hand painted, are fantastic and just stunning to look at. There is really cool flourishes throughout this. There's a softness to the film as well that makes the emotional beats land more than I was expecting them to. I went into this film cynical. It's a story I've seen a lot. I've read it to my kids multiple times, many iterations. This was a wonderful film, and it's probably my favourite from this set. It just kind of spoke to me, and I really loved it. Next up, we have the kind of centrepiece of this set, the Snow Queen, which is the animation on the cover here as well. It's basically about 2 young kids, one who is infected by a vengeful Snow Queen and drawn to her ice palace, resulting in the other kid trying to find her friend and bring him back to the real world. Again, very familiar with this. It feels like a more straightforward adaptation of that story. I think the most standout part of this was the Ice Queen herself. I felt a little bit of empathy towards her. She's watching the real world, watching people go about their business. She sees that she's kind of slighted and kind of quick to anger, but you feel that she just wants company. She just wants to be part of the world and feels neglected and frozen out, so to speak. I really liked the particularly the colours in this one, especially when we get to the sort of frozen world. It's all kind of muted and it's blues and whites. How we go from the city or the town centre where it's all bright sort of reds and ambers and oranges, and moves into that kind of cooler tones, which is great. It feels a little bit longer than I feel necessary for this one, and there are moments where my attention was waning, but then I would catch something really stunning and it would draw me back in. But I think part of that is to do with being so familiar with this story and with the tale.
Кай больше не твой.
And then finally, we've got one that doesn't wholly fit in with the rest of the set, in my opinion, The Key from 1961. And I think it's just because the way it starts out, it's about a bureaucrat who's just had a baby with his wife, and we see him kind of move through the city in an incredibly fun opening sequence where the world just stops at this new father as he floats through the world. I think it's incredibly impressive, and I really love the opening. When he goes home and talks to his wife and sees the child, I was expecting something more straightforward, but then we have the introduction of 3 fairies that come visiting. They offer a promise to the child that at a certain age he will find his fortune and true happiness just by following a piece of wool, and that will lead him away from his family. But then we have the grandfather character who comes into this one, a man who has worked all his days, who knows the power of good hard work, and knows that you have to reach and sweat to achieve any kind of goals in this world.
Это не гадость, матушка, а рабочий инструмент. С ним и дед мой, и прадед трудились, росли и выходили в люди высокой квалификации.
And I kind of like the allegory that's set up here. It's rather than a kind of traditional narrative, it's just a playful theme on you really have to work hard to get what you get in this life. You can't take shortcuts. You just have to put your nose to the grindstone and do it. It's really kind of fun, and I feel like one of the aspects of it that I enjoyed was the grandfather character. When we meet him, it's following his love for hard work, his value of good tools, his effort and want to train the next generation. The family are almost quick to just go, look, that sounds great, you follow a magic piece of wool and that will lead him to his happiness. But it never quite plays out like that, and I love how whimsical and how surreal it gets at moments when you discover the father and he's dealing with the robots and creating and working on things to create wonderful expressionistic pieces. I feel that you get the art within that.
Объясни ему, малютка.
Стыдно!
Не твое дело!
Очень стыдно!
Отстань!
The grandfather character is someone that I really enjoy. You know, he offers this world a pathway. He offers that it's not about quick fixes, easy happiness. It's about labour and avoiding shortcuts and working hard for what you get. And you see it throughout it. There's a kind of side angle where he is working on robots and creations and all these things that he's put a lot of effort and love into and is reaping the rewards of that. And I just kind of like the story. I kind of like the allegory. I like how when the kid gets a certain age, starts to follow its own path, which ultimately leads him back to the grandfather to see his argument on life. It's charming. The animation is really playful and off-kilter, and it stands out in amongst this set. It is visually different than the other 2 films on it, and I think that was the first thing that made me take a step back and just a little pause before we really, before I got lost in it. I think this set just shows like a wonderful care of animation. I think the hand-drawn stuff is just wonderful. I think the characters are super expressive. I think what really impacted me was a lot of the feeling that comes from these films. They're not just pieces of entertainment. They're there to pass on thematics. They're there to make you emote and feel, particularly the Scarlet Flower, which, like I said, was my favourite of this set. Let's dive into the disc and have a look at the extras. Here we are in the disc for Tales of Soviet Animation, Volume 2. Let's go to the extras. Visual essays. We have Written with Ice Crystals, Master Soviet Animator Lev Atamanov and the Snow Queen. This is a new visual essay by Evan Chester, who delves into the incredible career of Lev Atamanov. And it charts him from his very first feature, from his background, which he championed, and how he drove forward, creating some of the most influential animation the world has seen. Next, we have Innocence and Cynicism, The Snow Queen and Hayao Miyazaki. This is a new visual essay by John Atkins, who explores the influence of the Snow Queen on a young Hayao Miyazaki. This is really terrific. I enjoyed this because it's using the words of Hayao Miyazaki and how it kind of saved his career, put him on the right path to create some of the most well-renowned films ever. And there are commentary tracks by Rolf Giesen in all 3 films. There is a 58-page booklet included with the Deluxe Edition, which includes Lev Atamanov, The Scarlet Flower, The Snow Queen, The Key by Rolf Giesen. And there is The Snow Queen, The Scarlet Flower and The Key by Walter Shaw. That's the extras. I really enjoyed this set, and I'm really enjoying their Tales of Soviet Animation set, because these films aren't just, nostalgic curios. They are emotionally intelligent. They are beautifully constructed, visually elegant, and they still resonate today with their thematics, which I just think's marvellous. I'd love to know your thoughts on the Tales of Soviet Animation Volume 2 set. If you picked up, let me know in the comment box below what was your favourite of the 3 features. As always, there is more content up here. You can see more of my stuff. In the description box below are links to Patreon, membership program, manvfilm.com. Always in which you can support. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.